The Rosewood Book Club had been meeting in Mom's living room every third Thursday for 12 years. 8 women, ranging from Mom's age of 57 to Mrs. Henderson who was pushing 75, gathering to discuss literary fiction with the kind of intellectual authority that came from decades of reading group participation. They prided themselves on sophisticated taste. Margaret Atwood, Toni Morrison, Zadie Smith. Authors who won prestigious awards, earned critical acclaim and tackled weighty themes about the human condition. They dismissed genre fiction as beneath their consideration, romance novels as frivolous, and anything that appeared on bestseller lists as automatically suspect. Then there was me at 28, the book club's reluctant youngest member who attended out of obligation rather than enthusiasm. Mom had insisted I join after moving back home to help with her recovery from knee surgery, claiming the intellectual stimulation would be good for me. What they knew about my writing career could fit on an index card. I'd published a few books, worked from home, seemed to make enough money to pay my bills. What they assumed was that I wrote the kind of commercial fiction they'd been trained to look down upon by decades of literary snobbery. What they didn't know was that Jessica Wong had become one of the most successful authors in contemporary fiction. My last novel had spent 18 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, been translated into 27 languages, and sold over 2 million copies worldwide. My publisher was calling me their most profitable author under 30. But to the Rosewood Book Club I was just Sarah's daughter who wrote those little books, and clearly hadn't developed serious literary taste. The monthly meetings had become exercises in subtle condescension disguised as literary discussion. This month's selection was a 400-page literary novel about 3 generations of women confronting inherited trauma through the lens of historical migration patterns. Dense, symbolic, the kind of book that required extensive discussion to unpack its layers of meaning. The prose is simply extraordinary, Mrs. Patterson announced, adjusting her reading glasses. This is what real literature looks like. Depth, complexity, serious engagement with important themes. The other women nodded approvingly, each trying to demonstrate their sophisticated understanding of the text's deeper significance. It makes you think about what constitutes meaningful fiction, Mom added, glancing in my direction. Stories that challenge readers intellectually rather than just entertaining them. The subtext was clear. Unlike whatever you write, Jessica. Mrs. Henderson leaned forward conspiratorially. I have to confess I tried reading one of those romance novels my granddaughter recommended. Absolute drivel. No substance whatsoever. Genre fiction serves its purpose, Mrs. Chin said diplomatically, but it's not really literature, is it? More like literary junk food. The conversation continued in this vein for 20 minutes, establishing their cultural superiority over readers who consumed popular fiction instead of serious literary works. Finally, Mrs. Patterson turned to me with the expression of someone addressing a child. Jessica, dear, you've been quiet tonight. What did you think of the novel? It was well written, I said carefully. The author has strong technical skills. Technical skills, yes, she agreed. But what about the thematic content? The way she weaves together historical trauma with contemporary identity struggles. I could feel the group's attention focusing on me, waiting to see if I possessed the intellectual sophistication to engage with serious literature. The themes were clearly articulated, I said. Perhaps a bit heavy-handed in places but effective overall. Mrs. Patterson's smile became slightly condescending. Heavy-handed? I think you might be missing some of the subtlety. This kind of literary fiction requires careful reading to appreciate its nuances. Of course, Mom jumped in helpfully. Jessica's used to different kinds of books. Her writing is more accessible. Accessible. The literary world's polite term for dumbed-down commercial fiction. What exactly do you write, dear? Mrs. Chin asked with the tone of someone inquiring about a hobby. Contemporary fiction, I said. Romance. Mrs. Henderson asked with barely concealed disdain. Literary fiction, actually. Character-driven stories exploring family dynamics and cultural identity. The women exchanged glances. Their silence suggested they found my description either unconvincing or irrelevant. That's nice, Mrs. Patterson said finally. Everyone has to start somewhere. Maybe you'll develop more serious themes as you mature as a writer. Develop more serious themes. As if my current work was practice for eventual real literature. Have you been published? Mrs. Chin asked politely. Yes, I've published several novels. With a real publisher? Mrs. Henderson wanted to know. Simon and Schuster. This generated mild interest. At least I wasn't self-published, which apparently elevated me slightly in their estimation. Well, Mom said brightly, maybe someday you'll write something we could read for book club. Something with more literary merit. Something with more literary merit. My mother was suggesting that my published novels lacked the intellectual substance worthy of their consideration. I'm sure they're perfectly adequate for their intended audience, Mrs. Patterson added kindly. Cute little stories can be enjoyable in their own way. Cute little stories. The phrase hit like a slap across the face. 2 million readers worldwide apparently enjoyed cute little stories. That's when my phone buzzed with an Entertainment Tonight notification. I glanced at my phone, expecting some celebrity gossip update I could ignore. Instead, I saw a breaking news alert that made my heart stop. Best-selling author Jessica Wong's novel becomes major motion picture. Netflix pays $15 million for film rights. My stomach dropped to somewhere near my ankles. The movie deal had been in negotiations for months, but my agent hadn't mentioned they were announcing it tonight. The book club was still discussing the literary merits of accessible fiction versus serious literature, completely unaware that their cute little story writer had just landed one of the largest book-to-film deals of the year. Jessica, Mrs. Patterson was saying, perhaps you could recommend some of your books to us. We're always interested in supporting local authors. Local authors. Like I was someone they'd discovered at a community writing workshop. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my agent. Congratulations. The Netflix announcement just went live. Prepare for media calls. Then another notification. CNN Entertainment. Jessica Wong's The Space Between Mothers headed to Netflix in $15 million deal. And another. Variety, Netflix lands best-selling novel in massive acquisition. My phone was lighting up with notifications from entertainment news outlets, publishing industry publications and social media alerts. The story was spreading across the internet in real time. Is everything all right, dear? Mom asked, noticing my phone activity. Actually, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, I just received some news about my work. The book club turned politely attentive, probably expecting me to share news about a small magazine publication or local book signing. Netflix just acquired film rights to my latest novel for $15 million. The silence was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in Mom's hallway. I'm sorry, Mrs. Patterson said carefully. Did you say $15 million? $15 million, yes. For the film adaptation of The Space Between Mothers. Mrs. Chen's teacup clattered against her saucer. Netflix bought your book? The film rights, yes. Mom had gone completely pale. Jessica, are you saying that one of your cute little stories is becoming a major motion picture? It's not a cute little story, Mom. It's a literary novel about 3 generations of Korean American women navigating cultural identity and family trauma. It won the Asian American Literary Award last year and has been nominated for the National Book Critics Circle Award. The words hit the room like physical objects. Mrs. Henderson's mouth fell open. Mrs. Patterson looked like she'd been struck by lightning. The National Book Critics Circle Award? Mrs. Chen whispered. For literary fiction, I confirmed. The same category as this month's book club selection. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Good Morning America producer. Excuse me, I said, answering the call. This is Jessica. Ms. Wong. Congratulations on the Netflix deal. We'd love to have you on tomorrow morning's show to discuss the film adaptation and your novel's success. I could feel 8 pairs of eyes staring at me as I scheduled a national television appearance. Good Morning America wants to interview me tomorrow about the book and the film deal, I said after hanging up. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Mom finally found her voice. Jessica, I had no idea your writing was serious literature. You never asked what my books were about. You just assumed they were commercial fiction without literary merit. But you said contemporary fiction, Mrs. Patterson protested weakly. Contemporary literary fiction. Character-driven narratives exploring themes of cultural identity, intergenerational trauma and immigrant family dynamics. The same themes you just spent an hour praising in tonight's selection. Mrs. Henderson was scrolling through her phone. Jessica Wong. Oh my goodness. The Space Between Mothers is number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list right now. Number 2 actually. It moved up this week. And your other books? Mrs. Chin asked faintly. 3 New York Times bestsellers, translations in 27 languages, over 4 million copies sold worldwide. The numbers hung in the air like smoke from a fire nobody wanted to acknowledge. What followed was chaos. Controlled, polite chaos, but chaos nonetheless. The book club members spent the next hour asking questions about my writing process, my literary influences, and my thoughts on contemporary fiction. Each question revealed how completely they'd misunderstood both my work and my place in the literary world. Mom sat in stunned silence, occasionally shaking her head as if trying to clear it. Why didn't you tell us? Mrs. Patterson asked eventually. Tell you what? That I'm a successful literary author? Would it have changed how you discussed my work tonight? The question stopped them cold. Because we all knew the answer. Yes, it absolutely would have changed everything. They would have treated my opinions with respect instead of condescension. They would have asked about my books with genuine interest instead of polite tolerance. But they would have changed their behavior because of recognition and success, not because my work deserved consideration on its own merits. We support literary fiction, Mrs. Chin said defensively. You support literary fiction that you recognize as such. When you didn't know who I was, you dismissed my work as cute little stories. My phone buzzed with another call. The Washington Post wanted a comment about the Netflix deal's significance for Asian American literature. I should take this, I said. The media response is just getting started. Through Mom's living room windows, I could see neighbors walking past with their evening routines, completely unaware that one of the year's biggest book-to-film deals had just been announced inside this suburban house. 6 months later, the Rosewood Book Club picked The Space Between Mothers for October. This time they praised my themes, style, and sophisticated writing. Mom is now my biggest fan, showing off my books and bragging about me, forgetting she once dismissed my work. Netflix started filming the adaptation last month with a famous director and cast. Reporters call it one of the most anticipated projects. I still visit book club, though now my schedule includes festivals, lectures, and interviews. I'm no longer the rookie, they're honored to have me there. The people who believed in me first, my editor, early readers, booksellers, still matter most. Real respect isn't about awards or movie deals. Mrs. Patterson even asked me to recommend the next book club pick. Some lessons need embarrassment to stick. The film premieres next spring, already tipped for critical and commercial success. That means more than the book club's approval ever could.